And good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast, and good morning to those in the West. I'm very glad you could join us for day two of the 2025 DoD Modernization Exchange here on Federal News Network. In this session, we've got a great lineup to talk about one of the next chapters in the Department of the Navy's digital modernization journey. We've talked a lot about that journey just here in our annual exchange over the last several years, from migrating to the cloud to creating enterprise identity services to improving user experience to implementing zero trust. I think there's a very good chance that all of that is going to feed into what we're going to be talking about today, which is the Navy's IT endpoints. As of now, those tend to be managed in a bit of a fragmented way and tied to specific missions, not always operating with the enterprise in mind or procured from an enterprise perspective. There's some efforts getting underway just now that aim to change a lot of that, and we're going to talk about them with three expert guests. With us today are Justin Fanelli, the Technical Director at the Program Executive Office for Digital and Enterprise Services, also the Department of the Navy's Chief Technology Officer. Also with us is Brandon Weller, the Technical Director at the Program Executive Office for Manpower, Logistics, and Business Solutions, and Matthew Rambo, the Assistant Chief Engineer for Mission Capability at Naval Information Warfare Systems Command. Thanks to all three of you for being with us. I really appreciate you taking the time and lending your expertise for this kickoff of day two of our exchange this year. And Justin, I think I want to start with you. From your perch kind of at the DON CIO CTO level, and as really the service provider at the PEO level for a lot of this work. Talk to us broadly about what this endpoint initiative is all about, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Well, in general, we have solved problems too many times. We know that connectivity and capabilities can be done extremely well. And they're done best when we have a best of breed way of doing it. And so what we've done historically is a little bit too much MacGyvering or solving one problem for one use case and not using enterprise services and not scaling out what works best to everyone. And so we decided to turn the page on this and shift into the world of enterprise services for this case, the way that we have for several others over the last couple of years. And so we want to make IT invisible and boring. In this particular case, this is a digital capability that, if it's done heterogeneously, has a lot of management tail. If it's done homogeneously and we can converge all of the different offerings and components and simplify this, the best part is no part. Let's boil this down to what we've seen on the backs of some of our most successful programs in years, and then cut everything else out in terms of fat. So for a quality of service perspective, we have figured out all the way down from the ship to the base to the remote site, what the best configuration looks like. And now it's a matter of centralizing those functions and executing them, measuring that, continuing to get better and better. So we'll talk a little bit more in depth on the problem and then what that looks like from an ashore perspective, from an afloat perspective, from an applications perspective, and how tight we can get the OODA loop by singling up on what makes the most sense.
Lots there to dig into, but Brandon, you want to take that next step with us and talk us through a little bit about what the 2B looks like from an MLB perspective and kind of what some of the problems this might help solve for you are?
Sure. Some of the big problems that we have today is not only do we have to deliver business applications, we also have to deliver it with the underlying infrastructure and support mechanisms. So by aligning to this enterprise service, it takes a lot of the burden off of our backs. You know, we don't have to do the management of the devices. We don't have to do the securing. It allows us to, rapidly iterate and deliver instead of figuring out how to fit into a specific delivery model. When I say that, that means, right now we have unique devices that we deploy on based on the limitations that we currently have. Once this is in place and it's ready to go, that really takes that burden off of us. Then we have a common platform that we can design for. And all of the different parts that we need to meet today, having extra storage to carry in the pocket, all these other things kind of go away with this solution. So it really gives us the ability to, deploy straight to the sailor and have them have one device, and you can take it from ship to ashore. We don't have to do swivel pocket for different devices.
And so it sounds like what that might let you do, and tell me if I'm characterizing this the wrong way, is focus your work more on capability rather than delivering an entire tech stack for everything that you're tasked with doing. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, let's get back to application development and management. Um, and essentially lets us take the feedback that we get back. Once we have common platform security and controls across the environment, it frees up so much time for our developers to take the feedback that we get from the sailors and redeploy instantly. Because we'll have common platforms and common frameworks, we don't have to pigeonhole development for one segment of the population opposed to another. We can just get at the development and spread it out wide.
And real quick on that, Jared, you mentioned the
Please.
exact most important word, which is focus. It's very hard to do everything well. And so when in the past, a program office or a program of record was having to bring everything with them, or the integrations and interconnections that are required to make sure that our network connection connects to our transport, if all of those are different every time, the warfighter, the sailor in this particular case, is very downstream. By saying we are designating this enterprise service for transport, and this is the central vehicle for how we procure hardware and do the management of that. This simplifies every step so that we can specifically have the group that is supposed to deliver one thing know what they're responsible for, and then know where to ask or where to point for other responsibilities. So it sounds pretty basic, but sometimes it's hard to make things simple. Especially if people are eager to make change, or if there are competing priorities. And we've said we are going to build the right foundation. And we did that in parallel so that now we can compound or exponentially increase our speed to delivery over and over again.
And Matthew, let me come to you a little bit with some of the tactical and the afloat aspects to this. I think historically the way a lot of this has been thought about in the sea services is there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do ashore that's very similar to what a commercial enterprise might do, and then there's this whole other thing called the afloat environment, which is disadvantaged in a lot of ways. My sense is that gap is shrinking a bit, but tell me if that's going too far.
Yes, no, definitely. And I do just want to key upon some of the notes from both Justin as well as Brandon. One of the gap is definitely closing. Some satellite investments and other throughput connectivity improvements on the tactical side definitely have some promise to be able to leverage the best of breed that Justin had mentioned, from the afloat side or the tactical side to what we leverage today on the enterprise and the shore side architecture. Some of the big improvements here are that when we look at leveraging that best of breed, and we are taking across the different PEOs the best technology possible, we are putting better commonality of systems between the ship and the shore, and ITs that are managing either the afloat or the shore environment as they go back and forth. They are better able to leverage the same technology and be able to monitor and manage it in the same way. So definitely in this limited resource environment, we want to make sure that we are leveraging the best of breed, and this is a great step in terms of doing so.
Justin, let me come back to you as we start to talk about some more of the specifics that might be involved with this initiative as you start playing this out. I mean, the overall goal of behaving more like an enterprise, simplification. I mean, some of this goes all the way back 25 years to the start of NMCI and later NGen. I mean, these things have always been objectives in the Department of the Navy, right? I mean, what is different now fundamentally that makes you feel like you can make real progress in this area with all the simplification that you just talked about to start us off?
Yeah, I think in the past, it's been about activities. This is a centralized activity. Those are inputs. We are now more focused on outcomes than we've ever been before. And so if everyone thinks they're best of breed, turns out there's only one. And so when we measure, and so previously we didn't necessarily have that telemetry. It was nice to throw one contract at one problem, but execution matters a whole hell of a lot. And so what this means is when we're talking about fixed and mobile devices, one might perform much better than another. We are looking for that. And then as we solve each of those layered problems, the friction or the success compounds. And so for this, to the best of breed point, the performance of the right network component to the right connectivity. So Matt mentioned Sting. By using a different satellite that is much higher performant, that it allows for much more bandwidth. This allows us to do operations that we couldn't before. If you compromise on there, or if you sub-optimize on another solution, everything down the line has to be degraded. And so what we're saying is we want to maximize the, well, number one, we want to get rid of any parts that we don't need to. And number two, we want the best of breed in each of these. And then again, we want addition by subtraction, which means anything that's competing or heterogeneous, we get rid of that. And so I'd say the bottom line is by actually being outcome focused on each of these components, we're dealing with far less complexity. That's different.
That is different. And I wonder if you can talk at all about, acknowledging that some of this may be pre-decisional. I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, but can you give us a sense of the sorts of guidance that may start to go out to the acquisition community, for example, that might say things like, hey, going forward, this will be provided to you from the enterprise level. It's not something that Brandon and his counterparts will need to build and do on their own anymore.
Sure. So now we have a precedent, right? So we have for identity, we've said naval identity services is what everyone should do. And so this is a case where 25 years ago or even longer ago than that, if people were doing computer identity at some level, they were standing up, there's never been a centralized identity for the internet or computers. By doing this as an enterprise function, we can get rid of 1,000 different implementations of identity. And while you get rid of those, you actually both improve your cybersecurity and your performance. And so the zero trust implementation that we have within flank speed, for instance, of the 151 activities that it satisfies, we are saying, here is something that you don't have to go outsource or rig up. And so by inheriting all of those, you're starting on third base or third and a half base for most of these things, right? And so again, that just takes the load off of other people and allows them to advance. So what does that look like? That looks like inheritance across the board. If we have here's the government furnished piece of equipment, then you will have to, we will pick the best of breed piece of equipment. But if you say, I really like this device, well, maybe we should think about that for the enterprise, but people shouldn't have 37 different devices because the tail on that is really tricky. And it turns out the utility without maintenance probably isn't there. And so just like mature organizations all around the world, we're simplifying so that we can surge on speed. I actually think that our results based on our feedback from our users has been really positive. Most people don't want to be technologists. Most people just want things that work really well. And so when we started to implement this, when we implemented this in one of the carriers that then went out to the Red Sea, they were able to do things that people weren't able to do before. So just one unclassified quality of work story, quality of service story, is that they were able to network and connect up and do Teams calls for a lot of purposes, to include when there was some trouble in the area and they were on the way out weeks earlier than they would have otherwise been able to give notice. The CSO on the ship called back to the families. They had them video with their spouse and kids, and tell everyone, hey, we're okay. That what you read on the news wasn't about us. We're safe. That the morale on the ship and the ability to be ready and back in the next fight, that was something that wasn't capable before. And so as we open up new doors and really change the game, it's going to, in my opinion, flywheel. So we can say, hey, yes, there is a little bit less selectivity up here. Guess what? You get capability and you can stand on the shoulders of giants. So I think we can make that case in a really hard way with more examples. And if we keep at this, that piece will grow.
Yeah, and I was just going to
go ahead, Matthew, please.
Yeah, just to quickly add as well, I know part of our strategy is to get technology out to the hands of the sailor as quickly as we can, and so this is a great example that Justin had mentioned where we did get this capability out to the fleet, got some runtime on it, understand better the capabilities and limitations of the system, and this is helping us drive future decisions as well. So really getting that demonstration and technology out to the fleet as early as we can and get lessons learned on the usage of it is critical. And this is a great example of that.
Yeah, and in fact, I was about to say I interviewed the CSO that I think Justin was just talking about over Teams while he was underway in the middle of the ocean just a few months ago, and no latency. It was just like we're sitting here today. It was pretty incredible. It really is a different world compared to what I was just saying 25 years ago. Justin, do you want to jump in on that? Go ahead.
Oh, it may not even be the same one. I suspect it is, but now as this gets on other ships, we're seeing. Turns out no one wanted to be the person who said, "Here's what I'm speccing," or "I want to buy this like totally unique thing that doesn't have a." They just wanted to do things fast, and they traditionally couldn't count on the enterprise to do things as fast as they wanted. By streamlining this, by being pro grade and pro speed, we can do a lot of those things. And so in that case, they don't have to worry about it. Not everyone has to be a utility person.
And Brandon, let me come to you next. I mean, I want to take a couple steps back on what Justin was talking about just a few minutes earlier, in that, from an enterprise level, some of these things already have started to be provided as services like identity. What kind of difference has that made to you as a material developer in not having to worry about certain things? I mean, you can talk about that from a time perspective, from a additional capability you can provide perspective. What kinds of differences does it make to you to have to worry about fewer things?
It's a huge benefit and a major difference from how we worked in the past. We have teams that can focus on areas of need now where they don't have to, worry about specific security issues for an RMF package. We are inheriting a lot more controls, enables us to deliver faster. Everybody has a common experience across the enterprise when they are using these enterprise tools for identity. It really opens, it lets us to develop easier because you can have a single entry point to get many places. Just because they're all using the same architecture.
And is one aspect of that being able to think more from, I don't know, a device agnostic perspective, where you may not necessarily be providing, or even have in mind specific equipment that people are going to end up using, and it may be a BYOD kind of scenario. Are you into that kind of thought space yet?
Yeah, absolutely, and that goes into what we're doing here with the endpoints. So we've looked at all of those use cases. We are looking at, so from a PO/MOB standpoint, at the end of the day, we just want to build applications and deliver them. So the more that we can offload onto this enterprise service, whether that's MAM-WE, any other type of security controls, all these things that we have to manage today, it goes way beyond just the device management. It takes us having to, like right now, when we deliver applications to certain programs, we are delivering devices with an application. This new standard really lets us just deliver applications with the enterprise maintaining and controlling the devices. So if you look at that, and that goes back to your security question, not only does it come with IDAM, but it's the security of the devices, MAM-WE, the other technologies that we're using to secure these things. We no longer have to do it, and we no longer have to do it separately in different segments of our portfolios, because each portfolio does it a little bit differently. Under this model, it is just it's a centralized capability being delivered for the enterprise from PO Digital and PO C4I, and we're just adopting that. We're all in on just getting back to just delivering our business systems.
And so, ma'am, so that you guys have it, is mobile application management without enrollment. And this means that people already are using their mobile devices. We've proven that that is secure. We've proven that from a resilience perspective, now we have more options, and ultimately it's convenient. And where you don't have to rely on the government to buy your device, we have more people who are connected, who through some innovations internally are connecting to the networks they need to connect to do their job in a more convenient way. I've had people, reservists, who say this is now more effective than what I have in my private sector capacity. And so, well, like, we are now in the correct age in some places for delivering technology that just works for them, and convenience for our sailors so that they can focus more on mission. I think we have a lot of room to grow there, but this is one that we actually had to get a waiver because the policy said we couldn't do that. We proved out from a security perspective that this more than met the mark, and then the waiver got expanded and expanded, and then policy got changed.
All right, that is a great place to take a break. We are going to take a temporary pause and come back and talk more with this panel about the Navy and endpoint management. And our guests for this are Justin Fanelli. He's the Technical Director for Program Executive Office for Digital Enterprise Services, also the Department of the Navy Chief Technology Officer. Also with us is Brandon Weller, Technical Director at PEO for Manpower Logistics and Business Solutions, and Matthew Rambo, Assistant Chief Engineer for Mission Capability at Naval Information Warfare Systems Command. We'll be back shortly. I'm Jared Serbu, Federal News Network. Thanks for watching the 2025 DoD Modernization Exchange.